Hi guys, so I have been wanting to make a little video tutorial on making graphics for Invisible Ink for mods, mostly because I think it's really fun and it's something a lot of people want to do. Like it's just nice to have that bit of extra polish, to have a unique looking character or enemy or whatever, but a lot of people, they want to do it, but they start to look at these graphics or the guides and get overwhelmed, or they just don't know where to start, or they just don't know how to maybe do it efficiently. And yeah, so I decided to kind of demonstrate how it could be done. So this is just, we're going to close this. This is just so I could have something to show, or on the, something on the screen while I talk. I'm not really used to doing these voice tutorials, so you have to bear with me. But then again, if you are here, you really want to know how to make these. I don't really have a choice. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to explain kind of how the graphics in the game are set up and what you actually need to change. And yeah, after that, I'm gonna just make a thing as an example from scratch and kind of show the process there, and then also show all the different tricks that it can kind of use to save time and stuff. So this doesn't really need any specialized equipment or anything. So obviously I have Photoshop here. This is Photoshop CS5, a pretty old version, but all the tricks I use, they're pretty standard for graphic editing programs, including freeware stuff. So you could probably find this in Fire Alpaca, or maybe even GIMP or GIMP, or maybe you have to install a plugin. And I don't have a graphics tablet for this, so I'm just using keyboard and mouse. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it as far as the introduction goes. Okay, so first of all, the thing about the agent graphics is that, so first of all, actually you have to look at the files. So when you're making a new agent, for example, or new enemy, so here we have the vanilla, the unmodded game agent defs, so the definitions for the different agent, the agent entries. And actually, so if we're making new graphics, the only part we're interested in are, well, obviously we want like the GUI stuff, but that comes later. So the only part we actually care about right now for the animation is this line, so the profile animation and the anim. So this is the most annoying part, I'd say. So this anim references a certain animation def, and that's over here. So that's in animdefs. And so here, for example, anim stealth male, the Decker's animation. So it looks kind of complicated, and but really it's not that, it's not all that weird. So the thing about Klei's, or at least Invisible Ink's animation, is that what was it? Yeah, there we go. So you've got these. So instead of like just normal 2D sprites like you have sometimes in 2D games, like just the entire body, you have these little puppet things. So they're actually a lot of tiny parts, and they're all animated together. And so this is what they look like when they're extracted. You can do this yourself with the quad extractor tool, but also you can just, so this has just been uploaded online. You can just find it online. So this is sharps. These are sharps parts. And so the build is actually what is especially, so this is actually, okay, I mean this is Decker, but same thing applies here. So this is actually what we're looking at here. So this is the build. This is what the image of the agent actually looks like in the game. And I think these are some extra stuff like sparks or blood effects or whatever. And so this is actually not relevant to us at all. So we only care about this line. This bit I will explain later. And yeah, all the extra stuff, it just tells the game how to move the parts, but the build tells the game what the parts actually are. And yeah, so that's kind of where it's defined. Okay, let me just gather my thoughts here. Yeah, so obviously there are a lot of these. And yeah, I can already tell I'm just gonna throw my structure out of the window probably. So obviously there are a lot of these sprites, and as you can see, as you can kind of tell, there is a sprite for each body part. So for example, this is the middle body. This is the middle torso. So between the chest and the hip, these are kind of the arms, and then you've got these endless. Okay, actually not that many cloak animations. Do I have all the sprites here? It's weird. Why are there so few? Okay, and yeah, and then you've got the head, and as you can kind of tell, there are different angles. So if you just kind of rotate it, you can see that it's just meant to be from different angles. And yeah, obviously this means that you might potentially have to do a lot of work if you want to make a new animation from scratch, but it's really not all that awful. So I'm gonna explain why and just all the different ways you can make a new agent. Okay, let me just check something quickly. Okay, so here's a folder with all of the character sprites, including enemies. Let me just, yeah. So this is Decker's. Yeah, and he has a lot. So yeah, there are a lot of these sprite cloak animations. So in total, that's yeah, over 300 items. So you don't have to edit all of these. Like, you probably want to leave this stuff alone, but still, that's a lot of work to do. So I think this is a part where a lot of people get overwhelmed or just give up because they think, oh my God, I have to do pixel art on every single one of these. And no, you do not. And please do not do that. So I'm going to just show you how. So first of all, the thing, yeah, sorry, let me just check my layout there. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah, so I've explained the build thing. Yeah, all right then. So let's just quickly make a new build for a new agent. So first of all, the thing is that, let me just check that this is recording. I don't want to. Yeah, okay, great, thanks. So first of all, what many people don't realize is that you can get really far just by mixing and matching. So because all of these parts, you know, they're named the same. They're, for the most part, the animation, they just use the same. Like, they just use the same animations for all the agents, like, or at least for certain categories. Like, male agents have their own set and female agents have their own set. For the most part, this means that you can just like swap things out. So you can just kind of Frankenstein them together. So this is not completely without its tricky parts, and I'm just going to demonstrate. So I have this, what was it? Okay, yeah. So I have these, I've just copy pasted these kind of several agents that I kind of maybe want to combine together. And for example, there is this unused bot character who just kind of, some kind of droid type, I guess. And I just kind of, so to make a unique looking agent, sometimes, so it gets you really far just in terms of character design, in terms of making a unique silhouette, if you just, you know, recombine existing parts. And it's honestly not that difficult. So for example, if I wanted to, yeah, let me just make a new folder for the one I'm actually working on. So I don't know. Yeah, cyborg character, whatever. So if I wanted to make kind of a unique looking cyborg or droid agent, then I could start with this guy and then maybe just copy paste other characters' bits onto him. So these can be other agents, but they can also be non-agents. So it doesn't matter. They all basically share the same, so that their builds are made up the same way for the most part. So for example, I could decide to give him the Omni Barrier guy's, let's say his leggies. So let's just give him his legs. And this is also a great opportunity to demonstrate one of the potential problems with it, or one of the things you have to watch out for. So I'm gonna unselect these color sprites here, just select the leggies. So these are the upper legs, so the thighs, and these are the, you know, calves. So I'm just going to copy this. Yep, that's all of them. And so first I'm going to move them to separate folders, kind of so I can show you. So the problem is, yeah, oh yeah, right. What I've forgotten to mention so far is this part. So these are all the PNG sprites, the actual images. And then this is build.xml is what actually kind of tells the game what to do with them. So if we open this, we can see that this is made up of symbols. So we have one array of symbols, and they're all defined by different. So they all use these different files that we find inside. and for example, this guy has no hat, so his hat is actually, so he does have a hat symbol, but if you checked this, these are just tiny transparent 1 pixel images. So, and then yeah, he actually has several. Yeah, NPC builds are kind of weird sometimes because they have extra stuff, but no matter. So yeah, let me just find the face, for example. Yeah, there we go. So for example, these are the different face sprites. There are 5 of them, 1 for each direction, and also accounting for the fact that they get mirrored. So the quad compiler expects these images to be here. Unless you comment them out, then it's just like, you know, the symbol is there, but it doesn't contain anything, which is fine too. Although I am getting ahead of myself here. Yeah, so the important part here is that the game. So here is the width and height of the sprites, and if you check, you know that. So if you check right now, it matches up. So for example, if we have this. Yeah, so we have this face sprite, and it's 24 by 28 by 40, and here it's 28 by 40. And this is important because the game uses the pivots to determine in what position the sprites are relative to each other. This is honestly not that. So this seems like it's complicated, but in practice it's really easy to mess with. So if you need to change the dimensions of the sprites, then you can just do that. So first of all, I mean, we're gonna do that later anyway, just to show you. But so first of all, yeah, I'm just gonna show different methods. What was I? Yep. So first of all, the problem is that we're trying to copy paste some legs from a different character, and his legs don't match up with the other sprites. So for example, if you see this, if you look at this upper thigh, 00-0, then it's 28 by 44. And in this guy, it's yep, there we go. In this guy, it's 24 by 44. So if we just copy pasted it without any changes to build.xml, then actually it would appear slightly out of position. So you can always tell when this happens because it's really obvious, like they're just floating body parts or somewhere. So if you see that this is the case, that means you didn't check something, and the sprite dimensions are do not match. So fortunately, this is easy to fix. I mean, you could just manually adjust here, so it's like 24 by 44, whatever, for the legs. But honestly, it's easier to just. So if we copy pasted this from the Omni guy, then we open up his build.xml. We grab his thighs, and oh, that sounds really weird. We grab his thighs and his lower leggies, and we just copy paste that, and we replace the symbols in the other build with this. So we copy this, and this is the sample character. So just carefully select it. Yeah, whatever. So this is 02. Okay. Yeah, it's kind of maybe I should have started with an agent build XML instead, which doesn't have so much clutter, but this is fine either way, because so these are all transparent. So actually these don't matter at all. But yeah, I have to do these in 2 chunks. There we go. So now he has the Omni barrier guy's upper thighs, and then we also have to do the same with the lower thighs. So you know it's a bit finicky, so you have to kind of pay attention, but and you have to remember where you got whose parts if you do this, but it's not rocket science. Okay, there we go. So this should be good. Yeah, save. Yeah, okay, now we have forgot to actually copy the legs over. As obviously, I recommend keeping lots of backups. So before you make every, oh yeah, so actually, so this is another detail. A lot. So just now we actually copy pasted it, and it didn't detect a conflict because the names are different. So these sprites have a GRP prefix because I guess they were originally made for a GRP build, so a grapple build. Although we'll get to that later. I mean, obviously the sprites are the same. Doesn't matter what they're called. It's just what matters is that they're referenced correctly here. And since we just copy pasted it from the other build.xml, we know the correct reference. We just have to get rid of these ones. Or we could just leave them because if they're not being referenced in the build.xml, then they effectively don't do anything. But you know, just to keep things clean, yeah, just get rid of these. So I hope I don't make a mistake and then get issues with when trying to compile. Okay, so we gave him the, and I mean, let's just also give him the courier guy's cute little hat with the headphones. Where is it? Yeah, there we go. And here I'm actually going to, so obviously here the head sprites are also quite a bit taller than usual. Yeah, actually, I'm actually just gonna copy paste, do the same thing because the bot guy doesn't have a hat. So yeah, one second, let me just open up the build.xml. Yeah, so just give him a little hat, and then give him the little hat entries. Yeah, so instead of these transparent pixels that are just being referenced, here is going to have a proper hat. Whoop, nope, I messed up there. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I kind of want to show the other way of. So I want to show what happens when you do actually have to manually edit things or account for different size. Where should I do this? Well, I am just gonna do it without any specific good reason to. So let's say I actually wanted to, I don't know. Let's say I wanted to just, like for example, stick something extra, like stick an antenna directly onto his head. So sometimes you have to do this. For example, when making female agents. Their animation, so their actual animation files, the ones that define how the sprites move, they do not account for having a hat because no vanilla agent exists with a hat. So if you try to give them a hat, it will just not show up. And therefore, for example, if you want to add a hat, you have to add it to existing sprites, and for that sometimes you have to change the size. So if we have wanted to, for example, I don't know, draw like a little antenna that extended all the way up, we would obviously have to make the image larger to make space for it. And so this is actually not that hard. So what matters is just that the pivot position remains the same. And to do that, all you have to do is when you resize is you just make sure that it resizes in the same directions, the same amount in each direction, so that the relative position doesn't change. And then for that, all you have to, I mean, you don't have to change the default settings in Photoshop at all. You just have to. So we just keep it centered. So now if I change the height, and I like to change just to the same size, just so I don't have to, look it up every time later when editing build.xml. So just for example, make this height 100 pixels, and yeah, so that might be a little much. Yeah, let's just say, yeah, 80. This is fine. And then, yeah, for example, I don't know, wanted to. I'm just gonna be silly here and like, you know, I don't want to like make it look awful right now, so I'm just gonna save and then do the same with the other sprites. So we change it to 80, right? Yep, 80. Okay, now the second step is we have to make sure that the build.xml matches the new entries. So here we find, so in the cyber characters thing, we find the face. As you can tell, these names are they're not always informative, so you just kind of have to sometimes trial and error to figure out what's what. And here we just changed the height to 80, and that's literally all it takes. So now it will show up in fine in position. Yeah, let's also give him maybe, I don't know, maybe Sharp's little glowy arm thingies. And let me also just, yeah, the sprites of these glowing effects, like if you're copying these from like International or Tony or Sharp, they also tend to be slightly larger than the normal forum sprites, so you have to watch out for that. So let me just let me copy and paste these. So these are the LR. Okay, now it detects a conflict when we just overwrite. Yeah, okay. So you're kind of going for a look like he's kind of made out of scrapped parts or something. I don't know. I didn't like, this is just proof of concept, so this is meant to be a generally nice looking design. Just check that they're the correct ones. Yeah. Transparent stuff. There we go. So this is the correct one that we want to replace. So if we okay, there we go. So if this is the, if we just looked up what is being referenced there in here in all of these junk entries, so it's actually, yeah, so it's just this thing. So it's just 2 by 2 pixels, and there's nothing in it. So it's just a transparent image. And yeah, I guess that's a good opportunity to explain that when you want to remove a part. So for example, you're starting with a decker base, but you don't want decker's head. So one way to do it is just I mean, there are actually 3 ways to do, yeah, so one way to do it is just to make the images transparent. Like you just open them up. Like if you want to remove this guy's neck, just give him a floating neck, and then just remove, delete, save, exit. I'm not gonna save here, but, or maybe I should save. I mean, that does sound kind of cool, like the floating head thing. Yeah. I'm gonna just get rid of his neck here, sure. And so just open that up and save. Yeah, remove and save. Obviously, you'd want to get familiar with the hotkeys here. So for now, I'm just using Control Alt to select, the delete key to delete, Control D to deselect, Control S to save, Control W to close, etc. And so that's one. So obviously, if the sprites are transparent, that they will show up in game, but they will be transparent. So that's fine. And the other way to do is if you just take the neck without an E and just comment it out. So you want to be very careful that the symbol is still there, but it's just the individual images that are being referenced, they're just not being referenced. So this is commented out, but the symbol is still there, because if you forget this part, then you will get a missing texture error when you try to load it up in the game. Or, I mean, you will load, but it will not look great. Okay, so what was next? Yeah, I think we're actually ready to test this guy. So here's the next part. First of all, let's go ahead and give him an animation file. I'm just gonna copy it over from somewhere else where I have it, like. So this is animation XML. I'm honestly I don't quite remember what it does, but if so there's just one animation XML file for male agents and one for female agents. You can get this from the example API mod, and the only effect this seems to have is that if you have this in your anim and then you try to extract it from the quad again, so you kind of compile it and want to decompile it again, then it makes the extraction work nicer. I think the dimensions are preserved or something. So either way, it's good to have it inside, but you don't really have to worry about beyond making sure that the male agent animation is for the, is for the male agents and the other way around. And now we just kind of select, yeah, so obviously when you're doing this, there's often a lot of back and forth, so you kind of compile it, you open up the game, you see what it looks like, you go back and make changes, and let's just see what the process for that looks like. So I select everything except, this folder I could kind of delete, but So I select everything, I add it to a zip archive, and so now I rename it to I just remove the zip, so it's just, so the file extension name is anim. It complains, but that's fine. And the super lazy way to test whether animations look good is just to override existing animations. That way you don't have to worry about any of the animdefs stuff yet, so you don't have to make a new agent just to test it, so you can just override an existing one. For example, I'm gonna just copy paste it to my quad thing. Yeah, so here's the quad builder. I'm gonna briefly show what build Lua looks like. So these are just the settings, and if you like, you can comment out. For example, I'm gonna comment out the image block because I don't want to waste time trying to compile GUIs that aren't there. So these are the images. You can name them whatever, and so you want to kind of mimic, like if you want to override existing animations, you want to have the same file structure as in the originals, and you can see the file structure when you extract these or look up extracted sprites. So now we just put it here, and we're just gonna name it Agent Deckard, so it just overrides poor Deckard's animation completely. So now what's happening is that we are not adding a new animation def. Instead, what's happening is that the animation def that's being so we're just replacing this thing. We're just replacing the animation, the archive that's being referenced here. So these ABLG files, they're just put the same name here as you put in the here in the thing you use the quad compiler tool on, and that's fine. So the ABLG is in there somewhere after the quad compiles, I guess. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we've put that in, and now we can run the quad compiler. Okay, it worked fine. So there are no missing symbols or anything. Now it goes in the output folder, and then we just copy it. So here I have a test mod setup, which is just like, so the important part here is that, I'm not going to explain how to make mods because that's a whole separate thing, and you already know probably, or like there are other tutorials for this. But what matters is that, so yeah, so we have this little anims.quad, and we have to make sure that the same thing is included in the init function, so when it mounts the package. And then we just make sure to zip up all the files and run. Yeah, okay. Yeah, this is just junk, sorry. Yeah, okay, let's try to launch the game and see what happens. So I'm purposely not editing anything out, like in terms of time lapse or anything, also because I want to give an accurate idea of how long this actually takes, or how much work it is, or it isn't. Oh, sorry. Okay, so let me just, I mean, well, I might as well. Still recording. Yep. Good. Okay, now this is. Wait, did it not work? Wow, this is terrible for a tutorial. Did we name it correctly? Asian decor anim. Oh, yeah, actually, it could be that the mod's not that the mod isn't loaded for some reason. Like if it didn't init, let me just why do I keep losing it? Klei, there we go. I do always want to say Klei just because it's the way you pronounce it in German instinctively. Okay. Oh, yeah, I forgot to do a thing there, sorry. So first of all, I just may have forgotten to yeah, I just copy pasted this from like when making the test mode. I just copy pasted it and I forgot to rename it, and second, it's looking for a icon that isn't there, so that should work a bit better. Normally you would have to, like, the save that I'm loading was created before I edit the mod, and normally this would be a problem, but since it's in init, it's being loaded either way, regardless of settings or whether the mod is already there in the save. I'm hoping it works now. Huh? No, we're just gonna. Did it still not load for some reason? I mean, I guess it's possible. Did I? Oh, yeah. Okay, this is actually the line. This was the problem line in the previous log as well. I just wasn't paying attention. Yeah, so it's looking for it's actually looking for a missing file. Yeah, sorry. This is sort of annoying. Okay, so hopefully now. Well, I mean, this is also part of the process, trying to find out what you did wrong and then find out something really stupid, or you forgot something, or. It crashed. Yeah, this is unintentionally becoming a tutorial in troubleshooting instead. Oh wow, I'm just the worst, right? I'm just. Wait. What is it looking for? Yeah, okay. I mean, so this is let this be a lesson. It's best to start from a clean slate when you're making a little mod to test things. Otherwise, you're gonna be stuck forever. Just is that everything? I hope that's everything. So this is fine. So this is fine. This is actually the file we're adding. Okay. Yeah, I just copy pasted and I was kind of lazy and didn't double check to make sure that the mod actually initiated properly. So what happens is that because it didn't find all the files it was supposed to find, it just skipped initiation completely. I'm gonna be really annoyed now if it's still not there. Come on. Yes, look at that. Well, we've created something, all right. I'm not sure if it was a good idea to create this, but okay, so there's our guy. I mean, he doesn't actually look that bad. So the gray of the hips, which I didn't change, kind of blends with the floor. So that might have to be tweaked. But and the lack of neck and the head looks kind of silly. But you know, this could work. So this is a good starting point. And none of the sprites are out of alignment, so that's fine. All right then. Okay, before we continue, let me just quickly explain the wireframe and the GRP builds. So what we've made so far is the regular build. So this build just shows up on the map when the agent is doing normal stuff. The GRP build shows up whenever the agent or character is interacting with other objects. So usually this means, so GRP stands for grapple. Usually this means like melee attack or like dragging a body or something like that. And the wireframe is just a little black and white overlay. So it's the same thing. Wireframe or wireframe and overlay are the same thing. That's being shown when agents are in cover. And it's called overlay because it's literally actually layered on top of the. So the way the game works is that it shows layer wise. It shows the agent, and then if there are decoration objects in the world that overlap the agent, those are shown on top. But then the wireframe or overlay is shown on top of that, so you can see the agent even if they are otherwise obscured by cover. And so first of all, let's start with the wireframe. How to make a custom wireframe. Let's just say don't bother with it. It's too annoying. It's not worth the trouble. Most people or people who play with mods on tend to have it disabled by default anyway, because Church's agent mod combo disables agent wireframes by default because it makes for prettier screenshots. And in general, I mean, you could make it like you could probably tinker around with some filters or something to make it like kind of look. It's not just black and white. It has so kind of these highlights, and honestly, I just don't bother with it. But of course, the game does expect a wireframe build to be there. So what Church and I do is just, I mean, I stole this method from Church, but you just specify. So you just include an empty build in the quad. So just imagine this and replace everything with a transparent pixel, and that's it. Yeah, or just I guess you could also just comment it out in build.xml, and that's all it takes. So it shows up, but it's transparent, so you cannot see that. So that's over and done with. The GRP build is honestly not that tricky. So you do have to make this, and obviously it has to look identical to your regular build, or I guess probably you want it to be identical. And so the way you do it is very simple. Let's just copy this guy, so now what we do is we just open up build.xml and we so we just open up the build.xml of the GRP build, and we do this. So so what happens needs to happen is that the symbol name needs to have the GRP prefix. So these names don't matter, they just specify what's in the file. If it's named correctly and it finds the file, then it doesn't matter. You do not have to rename everything to GRP or anything. You only have to rename these things here, and I do it personally just very simple, so just and done. There we go. So that was literally it. Now you have a GRP build, or at least you will in a second once I repackage everything. or actually just the anim, but whatever. And then I will also put this in the in this folder. And good. Yeah, okay. So that's over and done with. Now, first I wanted to explain the anim thing a bit better. So well, I mean, I guess it's enough for an introduction. For the most part, so this you actually have to bother with, although there are some exceptions. For example, so for example, so we found this out when Klei was making some stuff, and we were trying to figure out why something wasn't working. Okay, so this is Tony's anim, and he actually has where is it? I'm staring right at it. Okay, yeah, so he actually has unique, so he has some unique animations. So if you notice in game, like when he is holding a pistol one-handed, he's actually had like his one hand is up with the pistol, and then with the other he's looking at his arm. So other agents do not have that, because I think this is the one that's responsible for this. Yeah, so see, Decker doesn't have this, so he actually has a different. So he's an 1 hour anims are just default anims, and here there are some alterations, and I think this just means that when you have, yeah, I think the problem we had was that there was some kind of glitch there, but I forgot what it was when Klei was trying to edit Tony's animation, or something based off of Tony's. Okay, moving on. Yeah, I think there was a problem with the gun disappearing or something. Okay, moving on. Sorry, I'm kind of distracted. So the next part I wanted to show is, so here we've made a cyborg character or custom animation, and obviously it would be nicer if we could customize it just a little. And so I'm going to show you how to customize these, or what to do when you do have to edit these sprites, or want to for whatever reason. So for example, so there are different. I'm just gonna kind of randomly start explaining different things. For one thing, so I'm just gonna explain the different tools that I use. So the problem with, well, like, obviously this is very tiny, and it's actually very difficult to just edit it directly in a way that wouldn't look weird. For example, if I try to use the brush tool, like it doesn't really have. It looks fuzzy. It'd be kind of, it's difficult to get the same effect that you get from the fact that this sprite was originally drawn at a much larger size and then downsized. And actually, if you check here, so these sprites are actually slightly transparent. So if you just drew a line here or a dot at maximum opacity, then it would actually look terrible, and it would look really like it would show up in game. It would be really conspicuous. But sometimes, like, let's say you do want to change the shape. Let's say I wanted to give him a different shape of the head, and what I actually do there is I select the lasso tool and make sure anti-alias is selected, because what this does is that when I, like, for example, select this area here, even though it's showing that these are the pixels that are selected, actually it's also affecting the other pixels to a range of different transparencies. So for example, if I now try to fill this area in, like, see, it's actually also affecting the sprites that are technically outside the selection. And this is the effect that you want when you're trying to customize these things. Now let me just undo that. And so another little trick to use is that you use the paint behind filter setting or blend mode setting. So what this does is that it only fills in the empty space and behind the layers. And well, in this case it might be a little, in this case it's maybe not that useful, but let's say that I actually did this. So I actually grabbed this guy and just kind of moved his head a little bit upwards, and now I wanted to fill in this gap. So this is really useful because you don't have to worry about painting over what's already there. You can just color pick and just kind of fill in the gaps with the paint behind tool. Yeah, so you get the idea. Yeah, you can also so you can use this to change the shape. Okay, so that's one thing. And then of course, so let's say we wanted to recolor the cyborg to be a different color, or let's say like this just opened up the worst case scenario, and actually this guy doesn't actually have the blue highlights that all the other agents have. So let me actually open up a different more vanilla agent as an example. So let's get, for example, Banks, Archive Banks here. So let's say I wanted to take Archive Banks and like make her code, instead of kind of bluish gray color, I want to give it a green color. So let me just copy that. So these are a lot of sprites, and this is kind of where it starts to feel really nightmarish if you have to do them all by hand, especially since like these are all the cloaks, but the cloak matches the other sprites and whatever. It's all a huge mess, and there's a lot of stuff to work with. And these are also like swinging coattails. So there are different ways to tackle this problem. I'm going to show you the kind of blunt cudgel-like way, and then I'm going to show you the more refined way. So first of all, or actually maybe let's start with the refined way. So first of all, let's just, for example, copy all the, or let's just open all this. Let's just say we want to change it to a green color, and we're starting with these chest sprites here. So we actually want to recolor all of her code, just recolor her entire code to green. So here's the thing. Actions and batch processing are your friend, especially actions. So actions, what they do is they record everything you do, and then you press a button, they recreate it. I think you can also set it to a hotkey, but I mean I'm not gonna do that this time, but you could just do that. So here's the thing. So the problem is, so you have two problems when editing these. First, you often want to edit things selectively. So for example, I want to only edit the blue area here, not the yellow area here, probably, and not the skin area here. So I don't want to just like give a green skin or something. And second, for the aesthetic and the style, you kind of want to keep these blue highlights intact. So you don't want to change their distribution or color. You want them to stay as is. And so for sprites which aren't too many, so for example, just this handful of chest sprites, here's how I would do it. So I would first of all make a selection and just kind of manually do this. Also, so this is also another thing where hotkeys are really useful. So for example, I could just select the blue highlight, and then also select this décolleté area, and then just invert the selection. So now I actually have this selected, and now I start recording. So I start a new action, and let's say make cloak green or whatever. And now we can kind of mess around. So the bonus of the good thing about this is that we don't have to worry about manually entering the same values over and over again for dozens of different sprites. We can just click a button and it's all done the same way consistently. Yeah, so let's just, for example, make the cloak. Oh, okay, so here you can kind of already see the problem. So I've actually so some of the yellow things are being sampled, even though they're not supposed to be. So actually for this reason, it's better to grab a specific color here and not just change everything. They are much better. So we were going for green, right? And maybe make it a little brighter, so, or I don't know, pale green, and maybe also kind of make it slightly darker. You do want to, so there are some things to watch out for here. So first of all, you do want to be maybe subtle with your changes. And the second thing is that in the game, actually everything looks a good deal brighter because there are filter effects, there's bloom, there's, I don't know, HDR probably. So actually sprites look a great deal brighter than they are. And you have to account for that. And when in doubt, just sample colors from existing sprites and use those as a base. And yeah, experiment. And then I also unselect, and now I end the recording. So now actually if I do this, if I do the selection again, I just press this button, it does the same thing instantly. And now I just Control save it and close. Of course, here I have to, let me just maybe save this one for later. Here I have to again select this manually. It is kind of rough, but it is, selecting it like this is good enough, and it's a bit better than the other method I'm going to show you in a second. And I mean, sometimes you have to do this for dozens of sprites, but it's not that bad because you can just like open up a podcast or a movie or something, kind of do this in the background. So you can multitask during this, and it's not too annoying. And I could be a bit more efficient right now, but like for example, I could have the hotkey, but I am trying to demonstrate it, so I'm just gonna take it easy, take it slow. So you can kind of start to see how this might get annoying, especially if you do this and then you check it in the game and then you decide that you actually don't like this shade and have to maybe change it again. Again, I will repeat that it's a good idea to keep backups before you do anything before and after you do anything time consuming. Like I like to just copy the entire sprite folder and just keep it. They're very tiny sprites, so they don't take up much space. Another thing I can say while we're here is that sometimes agents have different, like they're set up different ways. For example, here, so Banks, she only has short hair, but if we looked at, for example, Nika. So she actually has, so hair set up of two parts. She actually has, where's her hair? So she actually has a top hair part, which actually looks very similar to Banks's. And then there's also another set which is for the swinging, like shoulder length hair bit. So female hair is actually like articulated that way. You cannot achieve this with male agents anymore, that you could give a hat directly to a female agent, so you have to get tricky. So for example, just to show how this could be solved is, so Carmen, for example, Carmen has a hat, but her hat is actually grafted directly onto her hair. Let me just show, yeah, here we are. Oh wait, no. Huh? Okay, no. So these are hat sprites, but they're not actually being used. So the hat sprites that are the sprites that are being used are. Where is it? Oh wait, yeah, there we are, finally at the top. Okay, so here actually here are her actual hair sprites, and they're just kind of, yeah, just stuck the head onto there. So even though, so yeah, I tried to have the head there directly, but it wouldn't show up. And on a similar note, so you can give male agents long hair, but it's really annoying. And so Elias or Elliot from the Age of Lever mod, he has long hair, and he actually has So it's basically just normal hair but extended, and this was this was annoying to make sure it looked well with the face sprite. And then also his neck also has some hair glued onto it, kind of, because otherwise from certain angles the neck would show up on top of the hair, and obviously we don't want that. So you have to kind of get creative, and the point is you're not limited to using what's there. You can just co-opt certain sprites and make them do something else. And then another thing is when you're making a new agent completely from scratch, so a new design, it can be useful to pick an agent who has a similar structure to what you're looking for, even though they may not look very similar. So for example, let me show you the transistor red mod. So she has okay, I had a picture here somewhere. It was a good picture. Where is it? Okay, maybe it was. Okay, there we are. So she actually has. So I actually started out. I mean, this isn't the final version, but you can kind of see where what the final version will look like, because she's actually based off of Banks's, I think. Because the thing is, Banks has a collar, and I wanted to use that. I want to use that collar for Red's own feather color, even though it looks very different. Yeah, and I kind of clipped the coattails there. So yeah, that's that. Although this is actually more important for portraits, but we'll get to that when we get to that. I'm also kind of getting off track here, so I need to. Yeah, I was gonna show you how to. Yeah, we were actually in the middle of editing these things. So we recolored the. Where were they? Well, yeah, it's kind of annoying to search for these always. But yeah, we have recolored the chest sprites, but we're still missing basically everything else. Yeah, so these are now green, but we still need to recolor the rest of the sprites. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna pick all the sprites which have this, yeah, which correspond to what we want to edit, and we move it all to a folder, or copy it all to a folder. Copy this. So these would be awful to do by hand, so obviously, like you can imagine, this would be really annoying to do by hand. But we have a solution. So let me just show you something else. So so one of the problems with editing these is this blue highlight, because if you that's kind of one of the problems with trying to automate it, because this manually selecting it is kind of time consuming and annoying. So I only do that for sprites where it's important for the quality to be good, but for it to look nice, because they will kind of always show up. But for sprites like these, which are kind of I don't know if you've noticed, but it's actually kind of cool. Like they're kind of ruffling always, and they're never each individual sprite isn't on the screen for too long, so it doesn't matter if there are small errors. And this is where this more efficient but rougher technique would show in. So there is a thing called selective color. No, wait, sorry, wrong one. It's actually here. So select color range, and here we can. Yeah, let me just disable the preview. Okay, so here we can select a certain color, and we can also select the fuzziness. So you can see here kind of. So here the light sprites are the ones that are in the selection, and the closer they are to white, the more the opacity is affecting them. And if I take all the fuzziness or tolerance all the way up, then it's actually starting to select the non-blue sprites to which we don't want. So we wanted to move it to somewhere so only the highlights are selected, but not the rest. And so now you've got this, and if you invert the selection, you have everything else. So you can just so we could do our thing and make it green. Now you can kind of see how it also slightly affected the highlights, like they're kind of a bit greenish in places where they weren't before. And this is why I do not usually do this with like normal sprites which are important that they where it's important that they look good. But here it doesn't matter. And of course the best thing is what we just did, the selection and inversion. We can also just add that to the script or the action. Okay, so let me hit record again and let me select. Yep, and then invert. And then stop recording. Actually, I have to move this around a bit because it... Okay, so now, in theory, if I just click this button, it's going to do everything by itself. Yep, there we go. I'm actually going to undo this. And now we're going to do something called batch processing. So batch processing is Photoshop's... it's here under automate, and it just will do this selected action, so make glow green, to the entire folder. Oh, now I have to select... now I have to find it again. Okay, here we are. So I've selected the folder, and I'm just going to set it to I'm just going to set it to like save and close, so it's just going to override. I will note that if you do want to still keep an eye on this, because if it tries to select something but doesn't find any pixel that matches it, which can happen with some sprites, we might even see that right now, it will actually stop the batch and and leave the rest untreated. So you will want to watch out for that. But yeah, for now let's just let it run. And now it's applying this action to every single sprite. And you can, oh no, I cannot see that. So it's opening up every sprite and it's doing the thing it's saving, and you can imagine how much time we're saving right now by not doing this by hand. Yeah, it's taking a while even like this. Is there anything else? Oh, and obviously, if you're not familiar with graphics editing in general, it is a good idea to just like get the basic idea, because things like hue, saturation, lightness, like selectively selecting color and then just editing it can be really helpful. Okay, so let's see. So this is the output, and yeah, I think it's all looking okay. So it's usable. So let me just paste that back in here. One second. Yep, so that's fine. So we just copy and replace. And now we will also zip it up and also replace Banks's anim, just to see what it looks like. So, you know, if you do want to edit even hundreds of sprites, there is a way to do it and stay sane. But to be clear, it's honestly, you can get very far just with mixing and matching and minor edits. For example, like for instance, these guys. Like for example, this character, so she actually just has international spelled without any edits, so, or middle torso. Nika's pants, I think archive Nika's maybe, and the white shirt with like a slight edit to the to the chest line, and that's basically it. I mean, she might still look a little plain, but I mean, and the head's different, so I changed the skin, but they weren't huge edits where I had to go through hundreds of sprites at the same time or anything. And yeah, okay, and now let's actually package it up and go back into the game, and then we can I can briefly explain also how to make portraits. Okay, so let's just see what Banks looks like now. This guy with no neck. Yeah, so she has this kind of forest green coat now. Oh, I actually forgot the color, and I think I forgot the sleeves too, but still, it's the thought that counts. So you can guess how you would do it with the color and the sleeves. Now, when it comes to the portrait, so the portrait is actually, oh, thanks, Red, there for demonstrating. So the portrait is actually made up a lot like the full body build. So there are some animations, and there's they're being animated. There are some sprites, and they're being animated a certain way. On one hand, there are much fewer sprites. On the other hand, they're a lot bigger and more visible, so you have to be a lot more, I guess, perfectionist when making it. And here's the thing, so we actually do not have the software to make brand new animations from scratch for the game. So when making a portrait, you kind of have to take an existing portrait and edit it. So this is actually based on Prism's portrait. It uses the same. You can kind of see it like Prism has a collar here and some hair, and well, maybe I can just spawn her in. And Red has basically the same structure, but different content. But her face is being animated after Prism's template. And where's Prism? Here we are. Yep. So see, she also has this kind of similar structure. So she has this bit of separate hair sprite that's kind of overhanging the face. So even though here it's in the other direction, it's still the same structure. And she has the same similar color. So actually in the agent def, let's open it up. For vanilla agent, it usually has only one line, so the profile animation. But actually, there are two things. There is a profile animation. There's a profile build. When you're adding a new portrait in your custom agent anim, you will want to do. Yeah, sorry, I accidentally pressed the hotkey that turned off my recording, so I have to explain this part again. So in the agent def, you have the profile build, and that's the custom face you actually make, and it's being animated after a vanilla template, so in this case Decker's face, and you do want to make sure these match up, so that the face you base your custom portrait on is actually the one that's being used to animate it, or the results will be very Picasso-like, let's just say this. And so there's a certain trick that's really helpful for making custom portraits. I will just show you in game briefly. So actually, while the game launches, let me just so let me show you. This is what Decker's ignore the PSD file I just made it. So this is what Decker's face looks like, the portrait. It's kind of similar to the full body, so there are sprites and they're being animated a certain way. So there are multiple kind of blink sprites, but and there's a build.xml. So this is not too different. And so just editing this is by itself not a huge deal. For example, if I just decide to make his hat a different shape, like give him a cowboy hat or something, like I could just I mean this is kind of messy, but I could just select here and like using the polygon tool again, making use of the paint behind thing, like kind of give him some wider brims. So that's not the problem. The problem is if you make changes that are like, if you make a really unique looking character and you want to make sure he is actually recognizable and doesn't look like a Decker ripoff, and you want to edit these and make sure that the sprites all look good together, it can be kind of hard to visualize, and that's where I have kind of come up with this so-called Frankenstein method. And first we're going to go in game. I know I'm paranoid about the recording cutting off. I don't want to have to repeat this again. I didn't lose much, just like a few minutes, but still. That's what you get when you set hotkeys without thinking. Okay, so here now if you open debug mode, actually because of the expanded sheets mod, there is now a really handy option here. So if I select, yeah, sure, let's just select Decker. And here I can activate the full screen portrait. I can also change the portrait color maybe to something a little more neutral, like this thing. And let's just copy paste it. I mean screenshot it, and now we can close. And now what we're gonna do is we are gonna take this picture and we're going to use it as a reference to assemble this into something resembling a human being. So just make so this is just an empty, like an empty PSD file, like with layers. And now we're going to take everything here, like maybe except the extra blink sprites, and just yeah, put it here. Wait, he also has two head sprites. I forget why that's the case. I think one of them has shadow. I think the one with the shadow is the one that's being actually used, so we'll just get that. And now we have to confirm that it like. Okay, so now we have all these layers here, and we also want this as a reference, like maybe move the actual. Yeah, it's all smart objects, so I have to convert it to regular copies. Honestly, I usually do this a bit differently. You know what? Let's just do it the way I normally do it. So I actually, embarrassingly, I don't have much experience with smart objects in Photoshop, even though I've been using it for years. So let's just close this actually and so this does take a bit of time to set up, but it's not too bad. So now we just copy everything here. Or maybe just... What the hell? Oh, it's an eyebrow. Okay. Oh, we do actually want the extra eye sprites. I think we already have a hat. Okay, now we do. Okay, so there are certain... So now we kind of arrange the selection to make sure that it matches the reference image. and also that so it also needs to have the right like structure in terms of which sprite is layered on top. Now, when doing this properly, I would actually go through every single one and rename them just so they're at least similar, like I know which one is which. But let's just start. So I guess the one at the bottom might be this one, and then there's the okay here. See, this is one of those things you have to watch out for, because actually here the sprite it's not in rotation, even though in the image it's clearly at an angle. So we're just gonna rotate it like this. So we have kind of to approximate what it's gonna look like, and sometimes it's even at a different scale. I think it might, yeah. Like this color also at an angle, and it goes basically on top of the face. Just gonna keep it here for now. And poor guy has no neck. What is this? Is this? I think it's like the sleeve. Yeah. Yeah, I guess something like that. Yeah, this is not really an exact science. Actually, I think I might have. So this might take some time to set up correctly. Also, as you can kind of see, the sprites are much bigger than what's actually, or they go farther than what's actually visible in the game. But the part we're actually interested in is, yeah, I think this is the correct way. Now we're trying to make sure it lines up. So here you would like want to spend some time to make sure it matches up nicely, because the closer it is to what it's actually in the game at this stage, the less work you have to do afterwards. Yeah, something like this. Like, I'm not going to spend too much time on it right here, but so I have to make sure the eye white goes underneath and that the pupil goes on top of the eye white. Oh, poor guy looks so unhappy. And there's also the eyebrow. And then finally the hat. And also the collar. So there we go. And okay, we made some mistakes there, but you get the idea. So this part's actually a bit annoying, but you get what it's supposed to be like. Yeah, it's not too bad, I guess. Also, like when you saw, as you saw, the animated portrait does kind of move back and forth, so we also have to account for that, or it kind of swings. It's also something you have to watch out for, because some sprites might kind of contort during the animation, and you have to look out for that. Okay. Yeah, so this was only the first part. Now so the reason we're doing this is that now let's say I take the hat and I actually make a group. So I actually make a group, and so this hat will stay, the hat will stay unaltered the way it is, but let's say I want to make a different hat, one which looks, I don't know, like this or something, like it's just this huge hat, or just some kind of, I mean, I'm kind of messing around. Obviously, you know what you're going for when you're trying to make something like this, or yeah, maybe not that, but let's just like give him a feather or something. Like a very messy feather. This is... Oh, I still have paint behind activate, of course. Okay, there we are. Oh, and almost forgot. So another really useful Photoshop thing you can do is lock transparency. So the icon for it is right here, and what happens is when you select it, so you can actually only edit things inside like that already are there. So you cannot change the yeah. I mean, you get it, right? Yeah, let's just like whatever. It's not supposed to look great at this stage. But yeah, he has a really badly drawn feather in his head right now. It's it looks terrible. I can't live like this. Maybe something closer to this. Yeah, that's a bit better. Yeah, okay. So he now just kind of has a feather. And, you know, let's say that in this case, I haven't changed, like I did change the shape of the head a bit. So the problem is when I replace the sprites again, when I like try to split the image up into separate sprites again, how do I know exactly that they're in position? And here's where the Frankenstein method comes in. So because we actually still have this this original sprite there. So even if we changed this sprite's position, and oh, by the way, you have to make sure that when you do this, that you do not select the whole group, or that when you move the whole group, that the whole, I mean, there are some settings there, like auto select layer group. Like if I do this, then I move the whole group around, and if I do this, then I only move a certain layer around. So you have to make sure that no matter what, that well, you know, that the original head sprite is still where it's supposed to be. And actually, what happened here? Oh, right, I turned that head into something. Whoops, yeah, I just cut out a hole out of it earlier when I was cutting the... No, I don't care right now. This was just a silly mistake, but you get what I'm trying to say. So now if we wanted to kind of import this head back into the original head sprite, we would open this up. We would make space for the different dimensions. Let's say whatever. And maybe also, and of course, if we do this, do not forget to edit it in build.xml later to reflect the new dimensions. And then we do this, so we actually kind of make sure we have them both, and now we grab the group and we move it here. And now what happens is that we have the new group here with the new head. And okay, here we actually have to make sure we select the entire group. And I mean, you can already tell where it's going, right? So here now I just have to, like, I briefly make this transparent, and I make sure that the group is aligned with the old head sprite. There we go. And now I can just very easily delete the old head sprite and also delete the original head sprite. And now it has a huge hole in it. Actually, maybe just kind of... Yep, and now we have a slightly buggy or slightly weird looking hat, and it's yeah. So we know where it is. We know where the fact that it. Did I close the other thing? Did I really close? Oh no, it's fine. There we go. So like now that we've imported it, we know that if we do this with every single sprite, we know that it will kind of, the relative position of the sprites to each other will be what we wanted it to be when we were working on this master file. And that's how you make a portrait. Yeah, this is probably the more annoying part actually than the full body sprites, because it just takes so much. Yeah, okay. I think that's more or less it as far as the tutorial goes, actually. So, you know, there are some things to watch out for, but, you know, you always discover those anyway when working on it. So, yeah, I hope this teaches you how to get started when making these sprites or making these custom graphics. Yeah, happy quadding or something like that. Is there anything else I was gonna say? Let me just check. Oh, and yeah, of course you also have these additional eye sprites, and then you just kind of, I usually just open them up, make sure they're in the same position as the original one I was editing, and then just kind of redraw the blinking, honestly. There is maybe one last thing I kind of want to add, and that's just so we've only been covering the animated graphics and not the splash art. So the splash art in the upgrade screen, of course, is also, it's nice to have it custom. Honestly, I don't think there is a good cheat there except for just kind of painting it from scratch and getting someone to paint it from scratch. But there are some ways to cheat this a little bit. So if I think that was my example here. So was this the one? Yeah. No. Okay. So it's already. Yeah. So for example, this is an Agent 47 transparent thing that someone made as a promo image, and there is just a trick you can use that's just also an action, and like you just you manually select a thing, and then you record, and then you use filter, blur, average, and unselect, and it just kind of makes this block of color based on the average colors. And if you do this for the whole image, and if you're really persistent, you can get it to look kind of like the animated, like the original splash art in the style of Invisible Ink, without like doing all the work of painting it actually yourself. Although it's good to yeah, that's it. Like it's not the best. It's not as good as doing it from scratch or having it done from scratch, but it's not awful. So I think this is what the final version after I was done with it looked like. So I used the warp tool to kind of change the proportions, and then kind of when you look closely, you can kind of see where the patterning, where the tool was used. So yeah, I think it's better than using placeholder art at least. So yeah, I think that's everything, and thanks for watching. I hope this makes you helps you make custom graphics.